Talk about this all with our panel. Let's start with Kelly. He's been living on borrowed time for a while now, and we keep hearing things about him leaving, and then they patch things up. But this sounds really bad. Have you ever heard of a professional? You worked at the White House, the Obama White House. Have you ever heard of a professional work situation where people weren't on speaking terms?
No, because even if you hate each other's guts, and there are certainly moments in any White House where the level of stress or the pressure on you leads to that, but you have to keep functioning. And certainly the Chief of Staff and the President need to have a functioning relationship to run the White House and govern the country. Well,
I know you worked in Congress, and I'm sure in Congress...
I was not on speaking terms with
I'm sure. But you weren't all in it. You all had 435 of you. It's different agendas. But, like, I mean, doesn't that surprise you that they're not... I can understand there's tension, but not on speaking terms?
It doesn't surprise me if we're going to find out in the next 24 hours that he's leaving. So that would sort of be consistent with these... There's no reason to continue the conversation.
And he spoke to Mueller.
Yeah, and he spoke. Well, that may be part of it. I don't know, but if he's leaving, no, that wouldn't surprise me.
Jackie, I want to play more of what former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson said about President Trump. Take a listen.
We did not have a common value system. When the president would say, "Well, here's what I want to do, and here's how I want to do it," and I'd have to say to him, "Well, Mr. President, I understand what you want to do, but you can't do it that way. It violates the law. It violates a treaty." You know, he got really frustrated.
Wow. I mean, that's although when you think of some of the things that President Trump has said, he has said we should be taking Iraq's oil. I mean, there are a number of things that the president has proposed that we know on its face are abrogations of law or treaty.
Right, and when Tillerson was there were reports about him, you know, actually saying what he said there. Like, can't really do that. That's against international law. Things like that. But Tillerson knew what he was doing here, that he's poking the bear. I know the chairs are comfy, but that was clearly not a private conversation with TV's Bob Schieffer.
Right. But listen to this, Ryan. Tillerson also talking about President Trump's governing style. Yeah.
He acts on his instincts. In some respects, that looks like impulsiveness, but it's not his intent to act on impulse. I think he really is trying to act on his instincts. It was challenging for me, coming from the disciplined, highly process-oriented ExxonMobil Corporation, to go to work for a man who is pretty undisciplined, doesn't like to read, doesn't read briefing reports, doesn't like to get into the details of a lot of things, but rather just kind of says, look, this is what I believe.
It's not inconsistent with what we've been hearing for 2 years, 3 years.
I was just going to say, not a single surprise in anything he said, right? As you pointed out, and I think as you were saying, he ran on certain things that were illegal, right? And every insider account of this administration and just the daily press coverage, Tillerson confirmed all of that, right? It's extraordinary to hear a former Secretary of State say it publicly, right? Especially someone who denied that he had those views when he was in the administration. Yeah. But I think the most serious thing is about breaking laws, right? He said that the president wanted to break the laws and had to be stopped. Shouldn't we know a little bit more about that?
Well, what do you?
Well, first off, I think the undisciplined person here is Rex Tillerson. I mean, how does he not know that the president's going to turn around and call him dumb as a rock?
Well, I'm sure he did.
He hasn't said anything yet.
So why would you wait? I mean, he was fired in March, and he's been sort of quiet. And all of a sudden, he sits down in the cozy chair and decides to flip out at the president for. It just doesn't. It seems very random and undisciplined on the part of Rex Tillerson. What's the point here? He said nothing new. I disagree. I mean, the fact that the president wanted to do some things that were illegal, the president campaigned to do things that were, quote, against the law.
All I say is we want to know a little bit more. You know, if you heard Obama's Secretary of State, John Kerry gave an interview tomorrow, and he said, you know, this has been on my mind. Well, there's those times Obama asked me to do illegal things.
Yeah, like deliver cash to the Iranians, those kinds of illegal things.
But the
they
whole
did them.
Totally fair. I'm just saying we want to know more if the president was asking his Secretary of State to do something illegal, just like you would want to know more if Kerry said that.
And moreover, I think it's important that, you know, some of the things Rex Tillerson said about, you know, that confirm things that we've heard about the president not reading, et cetera. President Trump has called that fake news. He said that isn't true. Now we have a former cabinet secretary saying on the record, on camera, that these things are true. So.
I want to ask you, Jen, just to switch topics for a second, because Heather Nauert, the former spokeswoman for the State Department, is going to be nominated to be the United Nations ambassador for the United States. You served as a spokeswoman for the State Department. What do you think about that?
Look, I think Heather, when she briefed, and they briefed a lot less than we did when I was there, she represented Trump's positions and his views, and she did that effectively. But that's not the job. I mean, the job of U.S. UN ambassador is to be somebody who's driving the agenda behind the scenes. They're the unofficial leader of the diplomatic corps. It's really should be an effective, front line of diplomacy role. My suspicion here is that Ambassador Bolton and Secretary Pompeo are pulling a power move here. They want to consolidate power in Washington. They want all of the foreign policy decision-making to be done there. And if they put someone who's a Trump loyalist in this role, if they advocate for that, then they can have that.
And we've also heard that Bolton and Pompeo want to downgrade the position from a cabinet level to a non-cabinet level.
Yeah, but I think one of if the Trump organization saw the power that Nikki had as a great communicator. Nikki Haley is a terrific communicator. And if you think of all the things that she did, her role as in these meetings speaking to the UN was very, very powerful and really benefited the administration. And I think they saw, wow, that's really what we're going to make this position is, really the spokesperson for the United States to the world community. And I think Heather's a pretty good choice.
But they went with someone who hasn't contradicted the president. Nikki Haley was not afraid to contradict the president.
And I think
on
they
Russia.
know that they don't want that. I also will say for Nikki Haley, I'm not a big Nikki Haley advocate, but
I am.
But she was the governor of a state. I mean, she had governing and political experience. That's a lot of what you do.
We have to take a quick break.